Okay, so the genesis for JCU of how we started doing some captioning last year is we had a subject called Ridge to Reef, which is an international students only subject, so no domestic students. The vast majority of the students, English would be their second language. So there's a big need to subtitle those online lectures. It's a fully online module, with English captions. So we needed a process, and it was just timely that I'd been reading one of the industry blogs, No Film School, and they announced that there was this trial software called Transcriptive. Now, Transcriptive is a plugin for Adobe Premiere, and it basically promised to make the process of transcribing things a whole lot easier. So we basically signed up for the trial period for Transcriptive and began using artificial intelligence, the IBM Watson system, and then later the Speechmatic system to transcribe recordings. Now, I'll just show you one of the end results of that. So here's a Ridge to Reef recording that lives in our streaming media service called Mediasite. Now, Mediasite has the ability for us to upload videos and then at a later date attach subtitle files. In this case, they've got the extension .srt files. So if I start referring to SRTs, that's just another name for caption files. I've got the ability to add those to recordings. So if I just watch this in. Now, I think my system audio doesn't come through to all the participants. So unfortunately, with Zoom, all it's picking up is my mic. It's not allowing me to also share my system audio. But believe me, there's somebody talking here. And within Mediasite, with the SRT uploaded, students now have the ability to hit the closed caption button down the bottom there. And if I hit that, you'll see closed captions playing down the bottom there. I'll just turn this down because I've got the lecturer blaring in my ears. So closed captions, and if I hit on the information button, the closed captions here pop up on the black section a lot clearer. So that's quite a process getting that done. Basically, we had to look at a solution which wouldn't cost us the earth on this first instance. And fortunately, there's a part of IBM Bluemix, or the cloud system, Watson system, which is speech to text transcription. And basically, we set up a IBM account. And over here, you'll see that's my IBM dashboard. There's a bit of a process of getting this set up, getting approved. But then once we got our credentials from our IBM Bluemix cloud, we could pop them in our transcriptive plugin within Premiere and begin the transcribing process. So essentially, I'll go to one that I've got imported here into Premiere. Here's one of those Ridge to Reef lectures. I've just cut it down to 3 minutes just so the transcription doesn't take forever. And what I do is taken the recording here with what's unedited audio, popped it on the timeline, and I can send that off to Watson to get transcribed. And basically, when Transcriptive is installed, I can choose the extension called Transcriptive. And as long as I've clicked on some audio down here in the timeline, I could send that off to Watson to transcribe. We've got two options. There's a paid service called Speechmatics, which runs at about 7 cents a minute. From the get-go, you get no free minutes with Speechmatics. Or with Watson, one of the advantages of Watson is it's 1,000 free minutes a month. Now, the transcriptive people advise that Speechmatics is more accurate, so it's a trade-off between cost and accuracy. In this instance, we would get the subtitles back. They wouldn't be 100% accurate. There's always vagaries with regards to people's accents, background noise, and in particular, the Australian accent. There's no Australian language pack within Watson, whereas Speechmatics has an Australian accent option in it. So you'll find if you send something off to Watson with the Australian inflection at the end of a lot of sentences, you'll see a lot of question marks. where they think we're asking questions. So when we got our subtitle files back from Watson, we would then send that file off to the lecturer and say, could you please have a pass through this and correct what Watson got wrong? That is an extra workload for the academic, but in this case, it was very much justified. But there is that sort of caveat when using either of these two. They're not 100% accurate. We haven't found a system that is 100% accurate. So what I'll do, I'll just send this off to Watson, and then I can show you some of the prices for the different options that are out there. So that's sending everything that's on that audio timeline is now going off to IBM Watson's machine for transcription. And we generally find it's quicker than real time. So that's a 3-minute timeline that I have there, just truncated a longer lecture to 3 minutes. And that'll probably be back in a minute and a half. I'll just fling on over to back to Chrome here and show you some prices. Now, we had a situation this year where medicine lectures have to be transcribed. These are lectures that are recorded live as they happen on the day using our Mediasite system with a camera at the back of the room and a microphone at the speaker's podium. So it introduces a lot of background noise because it's not a studio or office produced recording. And there's a lot of vagaries, particularly in regards to the lecturer having an accent. And there was a requirement to caption these videos for a hearing impaired student. So we tried a few test recordings, put it through to Watson and Speechmatic, and they failed dismally. They just really can't handle some of that, lecture room, real world environment recordings. They came back with gobbledygook, a lot of pop, 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 wah, 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 sort of being transcribed all through the recordings. And it was just a real failure. So we had no option but to look at the third-party providers, professionally transcribe these recordings for us. It's basically a system where you send them off the MP4. They'll say, right, this will probably take us 4 business days. You can get it done quicker, it can be expedited, but at a cost. And we said, like, we can wait the 4 days, but what will it cost us? So with Mediasite, there's some automated options that could be enabled within our Mediasite system. And one is called 3Play. That's one of the vendors, I think, based in the US. Now, they were quoting $2.35 US a minute to transcribe the recordings. And if they deem the recording as difficult, they'll charge an extra $1 US. So the cost was getting up around, it could be $3.35 per minute. And for the initial batch of recordings, I mean, we're looking at 100 hours of transcription just for one subject alone. So it's getting quite high in price. There is another company called Rev that we looked at. They're saying they'll do it for $1 a minute, and they won't charge for difficult audio. But having a look at them, it looks like they outsource to sort of stay-at-home transcribers, and the transcribers have the option of picking a job from a pool, having a look at it. If they don't like the recording, the audio quality, if they can't handle the Australian accent, if they're struggling with medical terms, they can opt just to throw it back, reject the job and throw it back in the pool. And there didn't seem to be a real sense that we would get our transcriptions done in a given time. So we're very wary, even though they, cheap at $1 per minute, you get what you pay for. We're just very wary of going down a path where people without a track record of dedicated academic lecture transcriptions would be transcribing those videos. So what we eventually settled on for our paid transcribing service was Caption Sync. Caption Sync quoted us $2.25 per minute with no charge in their emails with the salespeople, no charge for difficult audio. However, when we did sign up, I was reading through the fine print, and there is a little disclaimer. They can opt to charge you 75 cents extra per minute in US dollars for difficult audio. However, we've sent 10 medicine lectures, very difficult medicine lectures, off to them. They've successfully transcribed 9 of those so far, with another one pending while they reallocate it to another human to transcribe. And they have not charged us yet for difficult audio. So we're just waiting and seeing with that company if it's just a little honeymoon period where they want us on board as a long-term client and they're waivering that difficult audio charge. It may be something that rears its head in the future. So that's those first 3 lines there are the different external vendors for captioning that we considered, and we're trialing Caption Sync for now. These other 2 lines, lines 7 and 8 on the spreadsheet, Just shows you if we go for Watson, the 1,000 minutes free. And then after, if you use 1,000 minutes within the first month, it then is 2 cents per minute, which is quite affordable. That's providing the audio quality is clear and the computer doesn't struggle with that. Okay, with Speechmatics, it's 7 cents per minute. And to buy the transcriptive plugin is $299 US. That's a one-off license fee. Works with Premiere Pro 2017. In a lot of their blurb, they did say it would work with previous versions of Premiere, but I tried it on the version 2015 to no avail. And there were a few little caveats when you're setting up your Watson account. I tried to set it to the Pacific region. It wouldn't work with my settings set to the Pacific region. We then found out, little caveat, we had to set it to US North, pretend that we were in North America, and then Watson would work. So there's all these little sort of catches and glitches you find out along the way. We found these problems being part of their beta testing program. But now that transcript is an alpha release. Hopefully most of the bugs have been sorted out. And Premiere is now in its 2018 version. I see it's on our JCU app catalog. It's 2018. So hopefully in the next few months I get to try it on the next version of Premiere. Now, if I go back, yep.
Sorry, Adrian, could you bring that matrix back up just again? Yep. I might have missed it because I'm just keeping some notes, but I'm just wondering, what's the turnaround time for the one that we chose for the caption sync? Okay,
yep. So caption sync, 4-day turnaround. We can pay extra. We can pay above that $2.25 and get an expedited 1 or 2 day service, but you are paying more for it. And we have had some captions where the AI has obviously struggled with it, and then it's gone to a human, and a human has passed it back, said, I can't do this. And then they basically send you an email saying, we're having problems with this caption file. It's being reallocated to someone new, but your 4 days will restart. So we have had that on a couple of our recordings. So it technically turns into 8 or 10 business days, but it's just something we have to wear because it also raises the issue of that if professional transcribers are having trouble captioning lecture recordings, you stop and wonder, well, how are all students in that classroom?
Yeah, what's the audio quality?
Yeah, I'll show you one of those emails that we get back from Caption Sync. I've got one here ready to go. So this is one we received yesterday saying the submission has failed. If you read the fine print there, but basically saying they couldn't do an automated transcription, which I presume is they're putting it through AI first, just like we've been doing, and then they're not having any success, so it has to go to a human to do manually. So I'm expecting to get an email next day or two saying that this job has been allocated to someone new, but our 4 days restarts, and that's just part of the process there. So okay, I'll just go back to Premiere, and you'll see our file has gone off to Watson. It's done the speech to text conversion, and here it is in a raw format. Now, obviously, you see the big slabs of text here. You wouldn't want that. That won't fit on the screen. But when we go to export this file, we'll have the option to break those lines up into more manageable sizes. So, okey-dokey. So just back over into transcriptive, we've got the exporter option here, and we export our files as an SRT file. And here's the option where we can tell it to break those big slabs of text up into more manageable pieces, 2 lines per screen. And I've chose the setting 180 characters per line. I just find that's quite manageable and nice on the screen. Anything small is a bit too short, and anything longer, obviously, it's just you're trying to cram too much on the screen. If I export that, I can pop that anywhere as an SRT file, and just pop it here. Okay, now that's come back, and we've found the accuracy will vary. Like this may be 60% accurate or 80% accurate, depends on the quality of the audio. So then it's up to one of us JCU staff, either a paid project officer or sometimes a paid student or the academic, to correct the files. So with the corrections, I've found it generally easier to use freeware that's out there on the web. There's luckily an awful lot of subtitling software for free to help help the community and help people with disabilities access media. So for Ridge to Reef, I use this program here, which is called Subtitle Edit. It's a PC software. So you basically open the SRT file that you want, and I've already got one loaded there. And then you also open the video file, the MP4 that's being transcribed, and that can present over here on the right in a playback window. And then you've also got a little toolbar here. So if I was to press on, this is one of the medicine lectures that we're having difficulty with. I just hit play there, and it's scrolling through the caption. And if anything's wrong and I need to add or make corrections, I just go into this edit pane here, make corrections, file, save. And what we were doing is when a lecture was corrected, just with our naming conventions, we'd have SRT original. So that would tell us that this is what came back from the AI unedited. And then the lecturer, once they've done their pass and made their corrections. So once corrected, the lecturer would just send back this tiny little 13 kilobyte file back to us. And then we could attach that to our recording within our Mediasite dashboard. So what I'll do, just while I show you the Mediasite dashboard, I'll just send the same recording off to Speechmatics, the other transcription engine. So Speechmatics. The beauty about Speechmatics is if I go under the language option here, we get 3 English options. So if your lecturer is British, obviously you're going to choose the UK, but you also have that Australian option. What it's doing there, it's encoding the audio into a FLAC file, sending that off to another provider, Speechmatics, and it's going to have a crack at that. So once our SRTs are done, another option for the SRTs, I'll just show, there's an online caption editor. We've had a request that for some of our medicine lectures, they're going to pay students to correct any of the SRTs that aren't deemed accurate enough. So but some of these students, I think the vast majority are Mac users. So they said, is there a way that Mac users could correct subtitles? So I found this online editor called Closed Caption Creator, where if I create a new project, just caption test, and all our recordings are recorded at 25 frames a second. I'll just make sure we set that to 25, create. Okay. What it does, this system, is it for the video reference, it needs a YouTube link. So I've just got it ready over here. That's the only caveat. It involves another step of putting it onto YouTube as a private video, to choose the video source as a YouTube video, paste the link down here, and create. There we go. Now our video is presented. We have to import our SRT file, choose the SRT, and we'll use that one that's been corrected. So SRT final, there we go. So it's just ingesting that in an online portal, and with this system, we can hit play up top. It'll play from the start of the video. It's just a case of manually scrolling through line by line as the transcription plays back. It's a bit frustrating. I wish this would roll onto the next line automatically, but it doesn't. And at any point, I can go into the relevant field and change make corrections. Just mute that. And the beauty about this software is I can just save that project to the browser. So it's basically like a cookie. It's saving the progress of the file as a cookie. So if I go away and in 2 days open up this project, it'll remember where I got to, and I can just continue editing. Especially on a long recording, we're getting down here, you see there's 10 lines per page. And some of our medicine lectures are coming back at 70 pages. So we're talking about, 700 lines of text that someone has to check. Now, with our medicine recordings we've got back from Caption Sync, we've been sending those through to the Associate Dean of Learning and Teaching. And he's been basically saying, these are accurate enough. We don't need a student to do these. Put them up live as they are. So in the ones that we've got back, the accuracy is so high from Caption Sync that we haven't had to get a student to make corrections yet. That day may come, but so far so good. And then when the correction here through the online portal is complete, we've got this export option where export an SRT. And there we go. You can just see it's downloading the SRT. And then the student would email us that back. So, okay, I'll just go back to Premiere, see how our Speechmatics transcription went. And there we go. Okay. Well, you can see there it's getting a little bit wrong in the first line. It should say ridge to reef, and peregrine wasn't mentioned. So there's another one back from the AI that isn't 100% accurate. But once again, we can save that and get it corrected manually. Now, something that does help the AI we found, if you notice on the timeline here there's no talking, but there's noise. What's that? That's called, in this section here, is room tone. So it's basically the hums and the hisses and just the ambient sound that's in the room without anyone speaking. What really helps the AI is if we remove that. So there is an option. I could export this audio file, just the audio file here as a WAV file, take it into a program like Audition. So here's that same file over in Audition. And Audition has a handy feature. This is an Adobe product, where you can go in, find that section of room tone, the hums, hisses, air conditioner noise, whatever it might be, select the room tone. If I do a right click, I can capture a noise print. What's that done is just grab those frequencies of those sounds there. Now, if I select all, now I'm selecting the entire WAV file. I can apply a filter called noise reduction. I'll bring this dialogue over here. And what this does is basically saying strip that frequency or those noises out of the entire sound file, and you can adjust how aggressive that's done. Noise reduction here. If you go too aggressive on some of these sliders, like if I was to take that reduced by to 100 dB, it'd come back sounding very robotic. But I just find a happy medium is generally between 10 and 20%, depending on the recording. I reduce the noise by 100%. I can play that audio file and toggle the effect on and off to see the before and after. Now, I know you're not hearing that on your end, but it's amazing what a difference that can make. I can apply that to that entire WAV file, and that's now stripped out that room tone out of the entire recording. So if I go back to the start here, see how much flatter that line is there. It's taken out a whole bunch of room tone out of the recording. And then it's a case of exporting that as a WAV file, import that back into whatever your techs or your academics are using to edit. Sometimes they might be using Final Cut Pro, Adobe Premiere, Camtasia Studio, any other system that's out there. Replace the old audio file with this new clean file, and that's going to make the AI have a much better chance at transcribing that. I'll just show how those SRTs, how we connect those SRTs to videos within our streaming media service called Mediasite. So if I go to my Mediasite dashboard, here's one of our Ridge to Reef recordings. If I go to edit and under delivery, we've got an option here to add audio transcriptions. Now you can do a manual upload, select the file, which is the SRT file, and it will attach. Or this option isn't selected here at JCU. There is an option to have either Caption Sync or 3Play recordings automatically be sent off, transcribed, come back, and the SRT attached automatically to the recording. The caveat there is, with our system at the moment, if it's enabled for every Mediasite user at JCU. So there is a concern, what if hundreds of people say, right, transcribe everything, and you're looking at $2.35 a minute? You can imagine the size of the bill that would roll around after a month if everything was being transcribed. It's just one of those real world realities that have to face. So at the moment, we're just doing manual uploads of the SRTs to those recordings. And I think that's pretty much covered most of it. What I've done is set up a Google Doc for our medicine lectures, just so the academic and the ADLT can keep track of how the transcriptions are coming along. So first instance, the video has to be made viewable on Mediasite. Here, if a lecture is recorded, it's made private until the academic chooses to make it viewable to students. We do advise academics to do a top and tail, trim the start and the finish of a recording so that, we're not just transcribing dead space or coffee breaks. Unfortunately, that's an additional workload put on the academic to do that top and tailing, but it does happen. We have to make sure that the MP4 can be downloaded off Mediasite. Now, on our end, I track whether the MP4 has been downloaded. Has the MP4 been sent to Caption Sync? I keep a track of the date it was sent, and then they give us a job code. So I just put the job code in this document. Then when the caption's been done, we get notified by email. So I'll keep a track of when the SRT files were sent back to us. And when they send us a file, they actually do a whole bunch of formats. So I'll just try and find one of those recordings. Okay, got one here. Okay, so this is an example of a successful transcription from Caption Sync. And there's all these different formats, SMI, ADB, a whole bunch of them. We're only interested in the SRT file, but I'm keeping all of these captions just in case a future streaming video service requires another format. We've got these formats to choose from. The SRT files that you do get back and that are finalized can also be uploaded to YouTube. We know a lot of academics like to put their recordings on YouTube as well. Whether the streaming sometimes is better for people at home or off campus using YouTube rather than a internal JCU service. So they can upload those subtitle files there. So then just keep a track of, was the SRT file attached to the video? Have we notified the Associate Dean of Learning and Teaching? And then we wait to hear back from the ADLT. Was the transcription accurate enough? And then I just keep a log of the name of the lecture. It's direct linked, so I could go to it straight away from here, and also a dashboard link for the manager. So whoever is managing that video can attach the SRTs, download MP files direct from this link. So if I click here, it should take me to that recording. So here we have one of those medicine lectures transcribed. The lecture has an accent, an awful lot of medical terms in there. And often you'll find sometimes the transcriptions are just almost a verbatim reflection of what's on the PowerPoint. We found that with Ridge to Reef. A lot of people were talking from their PowerPoint. So it's almost sometimes a perfect match. But in often cases, if the lecturer isn't talking verbatim off the PowerPoint, the captions down here can be a real lifesaver. Well, that pretty much shows you the process of what we're doing here at JCU using the different tools that are available.